This lecture is going to be a pretty quick review of what you need to know about vaccines in America. First thing, if you have foreign travel, we're not going to cover those diseases or those vaccines. In pediatrics, in infectious rashes and pediatrics vaccinations, we go over the diseases that are caused by the bugs we vaccinate against. We're not going to do that here. We're going to emphasize adult vaccinations, when you need to give them, and when you can't. So let's start with that, when you can't. What is a true contraindication to somebody getting a vaccine? The first thing you have to look out for, and is absolutely contraindication, is going to be anaphylaxis. Anaphylaxis is a life-threatening reaction to a medication or a vaccine. And generally, if you have an anaphylactic reaction to a vaccine, you shouldn't get that vaccine again. Most vaccines require multiple doses, and so you find another way to protect that person. The second one comes up a lot is going to be eggs, an egg allergy. And this is because in the past we have grown our vaccines in eggs, and so people who have a true anaphylactic reaction to eggs were put at risk and said not to have these vaccines. For the most part, we don't make vaccines in eggs anymore strictly because of this purpose. Therefore, the things that used to be a contraindication, like the intramuscular flu and the MMRV, are no longer contraindicated. The flu IM is a plus minus, and so what we've done is created the flu intranasal, a live attenuated vaccine that can be used if someone has an anaphylactic reaction to the intramuscular version. I'm going to put a dashed line through flu intramuscular because very soon we will not have this as a consideration, but one, you still do want to make sure because you don't want to cause an anaphylactic reaction, and two, because the test may not have caught up yet with the fact that we're making our flu vaccines free of eggs. I'm going to put a line through intranasal because intranasal is not made in eggs, but it is live attenuated, which we'll talk about next. I'm going to put a line through the MMRV, which used to be made in eggs and no longer is. That is to say, you're probably going to have a tough time predicting which vaccine is going to cause anaphylaxis. So it's only those people who have had a bad reaction in the past that is anaphylactic, not just a little red or sore, that can't have it. The idea being, give the vaccines. The last thing to consider is the live attenuated. Live attenuated vaccines are contraindicated in anyone who is immunosuppressed. And usually this means really bad immunosuppression, biologics for transplants, HIV, really old or really young. These vaccines are live attenuated, so that means you can give them the actual virus by giving them the vaccine. But they must be profoundly immunocompromised, and they have to go out of their way to tell you, I really shouldn't have this. Someone who's got a CD4 count of 4 may not take to the vaccine. That is, their immune system may not be robust enough to develop the immune response. But if you give someone with a CD count of 4 a live attenuated vaccine, you may actually inoculate them, give them the disease. The things you want to watch out for immunodepressed patients is going to be the intranasal flu, the measles, mumps, rubella, varicella vaccine, and zoster. There really isn't a way to get around this. You can, of course, use intramuscular flu if there's no egg anaphylaxis. If they are profoundly immunocompromised, you should not give them these vaccines. And instead, you should vaccinate them before they become immunocompromised or wait for them to get better before you do. Again, the emphasis here is if you're considering giving someone a vaccine, it's probably the right answer and they should get it. But now we want to talk about the individual vaccines, and that is you want to break it down by vaccine, how often you should get it, or when you start, and how frequently. And then what really is a problem or a contraindication to getting this particular vaccine? And as we've learned, the global stuff really shouldn't prohibit someone from getting a vaccine. The one you're probably going to get a test question about is Tdap. Not to be confused with DTaP. also tetanus toxoid or tetanus diphtheria. This gets very convoluted very quickly, but you can see with 4 options how this could very easily become a test question. The capital D in the DTaP is for a much higher dose than in the Tdap. You give a much higher dose when you're trying to prime a weak immune system. DTaP is for kids. Don't pick DTaP for adults. Tetanus toxoid and TD, tetanus diphtheria, are the options you have when you can't give a Tdap. These are never going to be the right answer on their own. The CDC even says this: if you have an opportunity to give the Tdap, give it. Which means it's going to be the answer to give the vaccine. What you're supposed to do is give this every 10 years for 3 lifetime doses. And the question you are going to get on the test is going to be, what do you do with the wound? Forget clean wounds, those are easy. What you want to look at is how many lifetime doses they've had and when the last one was. If you've had greater than 3 lifetime doses, you're good, which means you can simply clean the wound if it's been less than 10 years since your last one, or give a booster if it's greater than 10 years. If you've had less than 3 lifetime doses, you're going to need to give a booster if it's been less than 5 years, and the booster plus IVIG if it's been greater than 5 years. That's a long-winded one to understand, and we talk a lot about this in the PEDS vaccination lecture. What I want you to see is Q10 years, 3 doses, and then break it down by how many lifetime doses you've had versus how close are you. And notice I wrote TD. That's the booster. It's okay to use that after you've had a whole bunch of doses of Tdap, but it's also okay to use Tdap when you give a booster. When you have an opportunity to give Tdap, give it. Contraindication here is going to be anaphylaxis. And this is one of those you get a bunch of times, so you'll know if there's a problem. The test question won't do this to you, but if you have a bad reaction to Tdap, which has 3 things in it, you might drop the acellular pertussis to do the next one and see if a bad reaction occurs. The goal is to prevent disease, and if you lose the acellular pertussis, and that's the thing that caused the anaphylaxis, you can still give the tetanus booster. The pneumococcal vaccine is actually just as confusing. And so I'm going to make it simple. What I want you to hear is once before 60, and then once after 65. There's a lot to know in here, and I am carving it down to bare bones. You are going to use the 23-valent for a person who is older than 65. You are going to use the 13-valent for someone who is less than 60. You should complete a 13 series as a child. You can get a 13 again as an adult. The people who need it are those people who have disease, heart disease, lung disease, diabetes. Basically, if you're a medical patient, you need this shot. But the people who absolutely must have it is everybody over the age of 65. Keep it simple, once before 60, once after 65. And those who know a lot about this vaccine know why I'm saying what I'm saying. I want you to remember before 60, after 65. And just to emphasize the point, you never give 13 and 23 at the same time. Why would you do that? 13's before 60, 23's after 65. The zoster vaccine prevents shingles. Now the recommendation is everybody gets the zoster vaccine, regardless of your varicella disease state. That's going to change as the kids who currently get the varicella vaccine don't have chickenpox. You can't get shingles unless you've had chickenpox. But those people who are older than 30 did not get varicella vaccinations, and they're going to need zoster. Zoster prevents shingles. Shingles hurts, post-herpetic neuralgia, bad stuff. Everybody who is over the age of 60 needs a zoster shot. Now, zoster is live attenuated. So those who are truly immunosuppressed should wait till they're no longer immunosuppressed in order to get the zoster vaccine. Influenza, must be given to everybody. It is everybody, every year, without fail. Healthcare workers, nursing home residents show up to the clinic, show up to the Walmart, show up to Walgreens, show up to the street corner where they happen to be handing out the flu vaccine. Everybody gets a flu vaccine, and it happens every year. Just remember there's this thing, plus minus eggs, for the intramuscular and live attenuated for the intranasal. You have to have a really, really, really strong suspicion that the intramuscular injection is going to cause a problem in order to give it. HPV vaccine prevents cancer. Sounds like a pretty good thing to me. And now it is indicated for everyone, 9 to 26, boys and girls. If boys get vaccinated, they can't give it to the girls when they have sex later. If the girls have the vaccine, it doesn't matter if the boys give it to them because the girls are vaccinated against it. It prevents cervical cancer, and there's literally no reason not to get it. Specifically, receiving the HPV vaccine does not increase sexual activity or risk-taking behavior. Being protected just keeps them protected. And then the last one of sort of the adolescent vaccinations is the meningococcal. It prevents meningitis, and it's Neisseria meningitis, this one that kills you in 24 hours. So everybody should get this. But the people who must have it are going to be those who are going to be near other people who might have it and kill a bunch of people. That is those in college dormitories and those going to the military, army barracks. In American society, it's everybody, but specifically those who go to college or army barracks. There is no reason not to get this. I do want to revisit some of the pediatric vaccines just in case you hadn't watched that lecture yet, to emphasize a few points. Hib causes epiglottitis. If you give the vaccine, kids don't die of epiglottitis. Give the Hib vaccine. Hep A and Hep B vaccines, everybody should get. What I want you to remember is that there are 2 doses of A and 3 doses of B. What's important for adults is that if there is a record of Hep A/B vaccination and it's incomplete, you can simply complete or pick up where you left off. You do not need to start again. If you have no idea or no records of what their Hep A/B status is, don't get titers, just revaccinate. And lastly is the MMRV, measles, mumps, rubella, varicella. Everybody gets this. We talk more about the measles, mumps, rubella, varicella vaccine in peds infectious rashes. We talk more about hepatitis B and what to do during birth, during peds vaccinations. We talk more about the Hib vaccine and epiglottitis in the pediatric lectures, upper airway. HPV is discussed in cervical cancer in the GYN sections, and Tdap is discussed in more detail in the peds vaccinations lecture. So what I want to point out is that there are very few reasons that someone should not get a vaccine. Personal choice is one of them. That's an ethical issue. They should get the vaccine. Everybody should get vaccines. The Tdap is every 10 years for 3 doses total. Worry about the dirty wound thing in that peds lecture. Pneumococcal, once before 60, once after 65. It's not true, but if you remember that, you're going to get it right most of the time. Zoster, greater than 60, everybody gets it, unless you're immunosuppressed. Flu vaccine, everybody, every year. Don't worry about that egg thing. Or you also have the option to use intranasal, which is used when there's an anaphylactic reaction to IM and you are not immunosuppressed. HPV cures cancer before it shows up. We prevent cancer, everybody gets it. Meningococcal vaccine, everyone should get that one too, but it is necessary for college and the military. And don't forget about the kid ones, Hib, epiglottitis, Hep A/B, complete the series wherever you left off, and MMRV, prevent these diseases by giving that vaccine. That is preventative vaccinations.